Hello there, thrilling suspense fanatics. This grim little offering by Aaron Hollingsworth captures that frightening mood, that certain je ne sais quoi of Clark Ashton Smith's fantastic setting of Averoigne, a mythic province in medieval France where bad things happen often to bad people and also to good people. I hope you enjoy this tale from the collection, the Averoigne Legacy, edited by Edward Stasheff. Without further ado, let's get into it. The Pink Flower of Saint Zenobie by Aaron Hollingsworth. The humanity of Raquel de Hubert came into question the day after her baptism. From her birthday to her second month, the babe had been normal and pretty, yet sometime during that moonlit night her blonde curls turned sepulchral black, her cream-white skin changed to an even shade of pink, and her firmamental eyes took on mismatched hues of green and brown. No doctor or priest could explain the transformation, but people whispered rumors throughout the town of Saint Zenobie that the blessed water had washed away a demonling's disguise, or, worse, that the real infant had been stolen and replaced with a changeling fairy babe. None dared bring these charges to Pierre de Hubert and his wife, as the proprietors of the town's only cobbler's shop. No one wished to anger them and be without shoes, for the soil of Saint Zenobie was laced with razor-edged shards of flint. The tide of rumors ebbed as the child grew into maidenhood. In spite of her deformities, she became the belle of the town. She was the very feminine aspect of her father, a dashing fellow. Raquel was tall and well-formed, with skin smoothed beyond blemish or pock. The men of Saint Zenobie referred to her as the Pink Flower, and one such man was bold enough to draw her affections. Francois was the mayor's son, and a huntsman of local renown. With his flint-tipped arrows he never failed to bring back game, even in a forest haunted by loup-garou and floating heads. Though his suit was well received by the girl, her father, the cobbler, thought it best that the couple prolong their courtship for another year before marital vows were uttered. De Hubert would never fulfill the honored duty of giving his daughter away, for both she and his head went missing the night of August 14th in the year of our Lord 1196. The cobbler's wife awoke in a bed made soggy cold by the congealed blood of her mate's corpse. The neighbors awoke in turn to the cracked wail of her horror. There was no sign of intrusion or struggle. Brother Habile of the Benedictine Abbey of Perignon came at the mayor's behest to investigate the matter. The monk held particular repute in the knowledge of satanic lore and rural necromancies. Since time immemorial, beheadings were common about the town. Legends suggested those who lingered too long in the surrounding forest would be consumed by werewolves. The heads were then offered from bloody claws to the bony hands of some necromancer who would animate the severed members to float like aimless will-o'-the-wisps throughout the shrouded trees. Brother Habile was unable to question the cobbler's wife, for the wretch had cried out both her heart and mind, leaving her a gibbering hysteriac until the end of her days. The cobbler, however, though now a truncated cadaver, answered many queries. The stumped neck had been cut with a blade both heavy and sharp, swung by hands well accustomed to making clean strokes. A werewolf's claws could never hope to sever a head so evenly. About the wound a black pollution of the skin could be seen that was neither rot nor mold. Nothing else in the home had been disturbed or stolen. Drops of blood led from the cobbler's house to the edge of the wood. A search party was assembled, consisting of Brother Habile, Francois the huntsman, and the greatest of the town guard, Jacques Bryan, who wore a mighty partisan spear that, in past years, quelled many a rake and ruffian. Before they embarked, Brother Habil interviewed several prominent townsfolk as to the myriad of rumors surrounding the pink flower known as Raquel de Hubert. He also imparted a singular and queer form of blessing upon the arrows and partisan of his companions. Taking out a small earthen jar and leather pouch from his pack, he toiled in pious preparation for the terrors that lay ahead. Using a small paintbrush, he coated the flint heads and steel edges with a gum housed in the jar and sprinkled powdered silver from the pouch. After a lengthy prayer, the gum dried, and the weapons glinted and sparkled with a holy scintillation that reinforced the martial resolve of those that bore them. History tells us the trio entered the malignant forest never to return, never to recover the missing maiden. However, their severed heads were encountered over the next month. On the following night, when the moon waxed full, the head of Jacques Bryan, the partisan guard, appeared at the foot of the mayor's bed. The sight of the bloodless atrocity, with dangling shreds of neck and vertebrae, pinned the magistrate to his sheets with a fascinating terror. It fixed its cloudy gaze upon the mayor, and thus it spoke. A league deep into that cursed forest a swarm of human heads assailed us. Some were cloven at the neck, as if by sword stroke. Others were disembodied, as you see me now. They bit at us, and shouted foul things both vulgar and blasphemous. One of these floating heads we recognized as the cobbler, Pierre de Hubert. Francois's arrows had little effect on them. It took the deft swings of Brother Habil's cudgel to pulp each hovering member to inert paste. We continued on through coarse bushes and thorny thickets. Something large and snarling leapt upon my back. A set of hungry jaws tore half my neck away, and that is all I can recall. Then the head of Jacques Bryan floated out the mayor's window and back into the ghostly wood. On the following night, the head of Francois the huntsman appeared before his father, the mayor. This head had been cleanly severed. As the mayor wept in silence, the head continued where Jacques Bryan had left off. We were waylaid by a pack of loup-garous. They caught Jacques off guard, but Brother Habil managed to defend himself long enough for me to fell 3 of them with arrows. The rest scattered. We were loath to leave Jacques Bryan's remains there, but my love for Raquel and the monk's pious resolve compelled us forward. We eventually found her at the foot of a steep hill crowned by a ramshackle cottage of baleful aspect. A werewolf was chewing meat off Raquel's leg. Without thinking, I drew an arrow and sent it through the monster's heart. It fell dead, a man. Raquel's body had been flayed, her pink skin and raven curls stripped and stolen, but the corpse's head still housed those precious mismatched eyes of green and brown. Mad with rage, and ignoring Brother Habil's urging to maintain our stealth, I charged up the hill with an arrow nocked. Like a spider from a hole emerged a nude hag bearing a black broadsword. She was wearing Raquel's skin. Father, that hateful, chortling woman wore the hide of my fiancée in place of her own. The witch's body was that of a bent and tottering crone, but the skin she wore was the very skin of my pink flower. I loosed my arrow, only to watch it deflect off the flat of her terrible blade. With uncanny swiftness, she charged down the hill, cackling like venomous thunder. Her emerald glare held me fixed like a statue, unthinking, unmoving. She swung her sword through my neck, and I felt my body collapse to the ground below me. Yet my head remained as it does now, floating in mid-air like a will-o'-the-wisp. Oh, dear father, forgive your son's folly. I must return now to those terrible woods. Adieu. When the floating head of the huntsman departed out from the window into the spectral gloom, the mayor of Saint Zenobie ignored his fatherly pangs of grief just long enough to write down all his son had told him. When the information was properly documented and sealed for his factotum to find the next morning, the old man slit his throat over his chamber pot. Several townsfolk mourned the mayor's dismal demise, yet even more of them saw fit to vie for his now vacant seat. Life went on in the town of Saint Zenobie. Eventually, after enough people complained of sore and gashed feet, a new cobbler was brought into town to replace Pierre de Hubert. 1 month after the haunted night of the mayor's death, the floating severed head of Brother Habile found its way back to the Benedictine Abbey of Perignon, and appeared before the abbot while the holy man knelt in consummate prayer. In his private chambers, the startled abbot watched and listened, wrapped in pious horror, as the hovering visage spoke. "I have returned from my mission, honorable sir, though not in the way I had hoped. No doubt you have heard the accounts of those who preceded me in peculiar death. I come to report the remainder of the venture's transpirings, and to seek absolution for my sin committed in that foul cottage. After mesmerizing and decapitating Francois, the hag who will not be named turned her emerald stare of entrancement onto me. Enslaving me with succubal sorceries, she took me into her cottage, and, for a month, subjected me to venereal acts so atrocious that I dare not describe them in this hallowed edifice. In that time of lusty servitude, I learned from her many secrets. She had enslaved Pierre de Hubert, the cobbler, in this very satanic fashion many years ago, getting a daughter from him. When the cobbler's wife bore a daughter as well at about the same time, the hag switched the babes in their infancies. The fate of the true and legitimate daughter, the real Raquel de Hubert, was a grisly one. The witch fed the babe to her werewolf sycophants. When the pink-skinned changeling became a woman grown, the hag crept into the de Hubert home with her black broadsword, severed the cobbler's head as he slept, and ensorcelled the maid to follow her. Though the girl known as the Pink Flower of Saint Zenobie was half hag, her fate is still pitiable. Her wicked mother desired not a child to love, but a fresh new skin to wear for the prolongation of her unnatural life. This was the Pink Flower's reason for cultivation. I also learned of the witch's sword, an ebon blade of necromantic influence that animated severed heads with unliving flight. These heads filled the forest about her cottage, acting as her familiar spies and sentinels. When tired of my compelled affections, she used that very sword upon my own neck, adding yet another murder to stain her foul and demoniac spirit. Yet, even in that state of living death, that buoyant manifestation of earthly purgatory, my cleverness and cunning did not escape me. Lethargic from gorging herself on my leftover trunk and limbs, the hag fell into a deep slumber upon her bed of unicorn pelts. With naught but my teeth, I drew her evil weapon from its sheath, hovered high above her sleeping form, and dropped the sword point first onto her exposed throat. The blade sank deep, and the hag gurgled a bloody death rattle before taking her place among the damned. The abbot trembled in cold sweat and crossed himself. "You have rid this land of a great evil, Brother Habile. I have no doubt God will forgive your sin once we cure your earthly remains of this malefic affliction. I will summon the other monks. Perhaps collective prayer and copious amounts of holy water will free your spirit from that ghastly shell." The head of Brother Habile shook in grave variance. "Nay, venerable sir, we must be practical in this matter. Go and fetch a cudgel. Pulp this head into paste and burn it." Grim, gruesome, and grotesque, this tale moves along at a brisk clip, and I think is quite successful. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to bringing you another in the world of Averoigne. In the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, and check out the links in the description below if you would like to get your hands on some of my work. That is to say, Volumes 1 and 2 of Thrilling Suspense Fantasy can be and should be purchased by you now. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Have a nice rest of your day.